Hey, I'm Cedric Chambers, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of the 3D Podcast, a masterclass where we share with you everything you need to know about how to transform diversity and inclusion in your organization as well as in your community. We're on a mission to amplify the voices of leaders that are making an impact in the world today so that we can have a better tomorrow. Our goal every episode is to keep it simple, honest, and transparent with you by uncovering the truths in diversity and inclusion with the hope of creating behavioral change, all while presenting it from a unique perspective. So look, if you're ready, get your notepad out, pour you a drink, and let's dive deep as we discuss the dimensions of diversity. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the 3D Podcast, where we speak to real practitioners that are making real change in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. Look, I'm excited for our show today as we are speaking to Alsyha Campbell. Alsyha is an award-winning, best-selling author and highly respected strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion leader with a decade of experience that encompasses all facets of human resource management and DE&I. From executing successful multi-million-dollar workforce diversity and optimization projects to spearheading inclusive employee culture initiatives, Alsyha has truly seen and done it all in the DE&I space. Her passion for the industry has led her to start her own HR consultancy and strategy agency, Culture Shift HR. A founder and principal, Alsyha uses her business acumen to help companies utilize and engage their best talent while creating purposeful, diverse, and inclusive work environments that help businesses grow and thrive. Look, I'm excited for this discussion, and I hope you are too. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Hey, Alsyha, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Cedric. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. Look, I am
Wonderful. I
excited.
love that.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation,
Yeah.
right? I think that, in the world that we're in, in everything that's going on, when we think about leadership, when we think about being an inclusive leader, look, I think there's a lot that we need to understand and tackle in this space. And so I'm excited to be able to speak with you in that area and really dig deep here, right? As we go through this show here. And, the first place I would say we would start, right, is that, there's a lot of people in the space and in any space, right? And one of the things I'm just very, very fascinated with is the journey, right? The journey to becoming you. And so, I would love it if for our audience, right, you could just share a little bit into, your journey as you've navigated life, your career, and kind of how you got into the diversity, equity, inclusion space, and would love to kind of see like what drove you to start Culture Shift HR.
So I started in talent acquisition. It's funny. I graduated university. I went to a recruitment firm for them to kind of help me find a job at the time, which was in accounting,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not. And I ended up leaving there with a job offer. So
Nice.
they saw my energy, my personality, and they're like, yeah, do you want to be a recruiter and join our team? And at that time, I was looking for a job. I was like, I ain't nobody to be turning down no money. I need to work. So I said yes. I didn't know that yes would change literally the projection of my life in so many different ways. And what I mean by that is, you start in something, not really knowing your footing, not really knowing where you're going, but slowly this path starts to not only direct you, but it starts to shape who you are as a human being. And for myself, it was really key because anyone in talent management or acquisition will know you meet a lot of people.
Yep.
You're talking to people all day, you're interviewing them. It's kind of like a little bit of you have your own talk show because you're just talking to people nonstop. And so I, I realized quite quickly that, as I'm helping people navigate their own careers by helping place them in different jobs and opportunities, my curiosity didn't stop there. I always wanted to know, how are they doing in the companies? Are they happy? Are they getting promoted? What's next for them? And so I realized, as much as I loved talent acquisition and helping people navigate, that next great opportunity, I needed to know more. I needed to kind of know the full employee life cycle and kind of what that looked like and my role in making sure that environments were making people happy. Because when you think about it, we spend 8, maybe 10 hours a day at work. Now, mind you, a lot of us are virtual now
Yep.
or remote, so we have more flexibility. But I'm talking 10 years ago, there was no remote work. It was in the office every day. And realizing for me, wanting more out of my career, it really started to carve the path of how I navigated happiness in the workplace. And so through my own curiosity and me asking lots of questions, I continued to, rise the ranks. I left talent acquisition, got more into the HR kind of stream where I had more access, more opportunity. I touched more levers in regards to the employee experience, and then slowly kind of made my way up to director, senior advisory positions within the human resources field. And what I noticed is that because I was so employee experience focused, a lot of the time I was realizing, not only one, being a woman, but two, being a woman of color, how experiences were so different
Yeah.
for people in the workplace. There was always that group, I call them the popular kids, that loved work, loved
Mhm.
what they did, always had advancement, always had opportunity, always, got the best and brightest projects. And there were just others who just weren't getting
Yep.
it. And they were smart and talented and driven and incredible human beings, but you could tell there was a divide in the workplace. And so that's when I really began to dive deep into DE&I work through my own HR experiences and my own experience just coming up in the workplace. And in 2018, I hit a wall. I was mentally, emotionally, and spiritually burnt out. I was working, I was tired of working the twice as hard for half the pay,
Yep.
half the promotion, all the things. And I really had to ask myself serious questions because of the way that I was treating myself. And I'm talking about up at 4, bed at 2. Like, it was just really, really, the amount of pressure
Yeah.
and circumstances I was putting myself under just to continually push and promote and advocate and show my worth was just, driving me into the ground. And so actually it was a friend of mine that actually said, like, Alicia, like, you really need to stop doing
Yeah.
this. This is, first of all, nobody cares, meaning that no one other than her was going to come and tell me to stop doing this. They see the emails, they see the late night
Yep.
messages, but no one's going to come to save you. So don't wait for it.
Mhm.
And two, you deserve better than this. And you need to find a space where you feel seen, appreciated, loved, honored, and valued based on what you do. And when she spoke to me, that's when I realized I had that like awakening. And from there, I created Culture Shift HR. And I had no clue what I was doing. I did not have no master 50-page business plan. I had no marketing strategy, no nothing. It was just, I needed an outlet to say, like, I love the work that I do.
Mhm.
I know the work I do is so important, it's so key, but I need to do it for people who actually want it done. And so slowly but surely, the business began to grow. And I built it really off the side of my desk for 3 years. And then this year we went full time,
Nice.
as a sustainable company, very well into the 6-figure range. I have a team. And to think of where this started out of a place of pain and agony and stress, and now it's this now beautiful, flourishing business that's connecting and helping leaders and creating a new
Yeah.
narrative around inclusive leadership and culture. I'm blessed every single day. So if anyone takes anything away from that story, it's really that, bet on you. I can
Woo.
do it. You can do it. And I know that sounds cliche, but there is nothing better than saying, I'm going to do something, and, meaning that so much that you owe it to yourself to do it, and then seeing that come to life.
Mm. I love it. I love it. I mean, just hearing, right, the story to get here and understand that you were burnt out. Let me ask you this question, and I got one more about Culture Shift HR. Is that as you were going through it, how, because when you're starting a business or you're thinking about doing something, right, I don't say a nervousness, right, which is like, man, should I do it? Like, I'm finna do it right now. This is going to be the moment. Like, what really like pushed you to say it has to happen right now?
Mm-hmm. I love that question because the feeling that I had only when I started Culture Shift and when I went full time
Yeah.
into the business has only happened twice in my life,
Mm.
and I'll explain in a second. So when I'm a woman of faith, I really believe, I know that God has His hand on my life, and when I think about the way He's navigated me in every and any circumstance, I try to say that I listen. I try to be really attentive to what's going on, but I am not perfect. I am incredibly stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I wear or used to wear hardness and hardship as a badge of
Mm.
honor, as I think a lot of women do, because it's like, I gotta earn this, I gotta work for this. And it's like, nah, like, that's not everything needs to be that. But for me at that stage of my
Yeah.
life, that's where I was at. And it literally took, and when I say like, God literally had to like shake my world apart and kind of make me realize what was going on. That's when I realized, okay, this cannot be my be all and end all. And so it was my friend coming to speak to me, realizing, you know, the condition that I was in, in all the different facets, and that I wasn't taking care of myself. And that was very, very clear. And other people were saying similar things, but I really wasn't listening. I was blocking it out because I thought this is what I had to do.
Yep.
I was like, I'm going to prove all these people wrong. I'm going to do all the things like, we always say and do. And it's not that I wasn't capable, but I was going to such extremes that under no circumstance any human being should have to go under. And, God just literally called this woman into my life who I didn't even know that well, which was funny, to say, hey, listen, I don't know what's going on, but you really got to reevaluate the way you're going about things. And that was what shook me to my core, and I guess awoken me to realize what was going on. And then number two, when I went full time into the business, I was debating that decision for a year. I knew it was time, but as always, it's like, okay, well, a little bit longer. I'm going to wait till I hit this revenue goal, or wait till this end. And God was like, nope. I woke up. I had this feeling in me. I'm like, something's going to be different today, God. And then work just was different that day. And I decided, I'm like, I've never felt this motivated to leave an opportunity to do this. I'm like, and I quit on the spot. And that's not me at all. Like, I am a very thought out, very mechanical person that's like very thoughtful and very intentional. I never just make a rash decision. And there was nothing else I could have done that day that would have been more truer to myself than making that rash decision. And it was the best decision, because a week later, from, not having a job lined up, yes, I had culture shift, but it wasn't at the state that I imagined it needed to be for me to even be in that space full time. I closed a 6-month contract. And so it was God reaffirming, like, I got you. Like, if you just, I know you say you trust me, but you really got to trust me if we're going to go through this together. And he hasn't let me down since. And so to say that, it's like going on that leap of faith, having that opportunity, again, not only trusting in me, but trusting in God to know that this is the vision he has for you. You have to step into it, or else you're not going to receive it. And it's understanding that we have to take that action. We have to activate the faith that we have in order to receive the blessing that's meant for us. And so that's just the journey that I've been on. And it's been an amazing blessing. And I can't even put into words what's going to be happening next year.
Wow, look, I'm trying to hold it. Look, this is like that's a praise dance moment right there. But I'm like, looking like, hold on. Look, when God says move, please. Like, this is move. That's amazing.
Or he will move you. Oh, that's the thing. He will move you.
Yeah, by moving everything around you, right? It's like an earthquake, right? Yeah. That's like, look, I'm gonna make it so uncomfortable for you to be in this space that there's only one way out. Right. And so it's hearing.
Exactly.
I love it. That's the man. I'm thinking like now, like if I had to give my own testimony, I'm like, look, hold on for a second. This is good. And so let me ask you this, man, that was good. I want to make sure. So when we think about in your organization, culture shift, HR, just, briefly, what type of work is the organization doing today? Is it focused just on like one specific area, or, one type of delivery method, training, consulting? Just tell us a little bit more about, the organization and what the work you all are doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do both fractional HR or human resources services, as well as full scope diversity, equity, and inclusion consultancy services. So what that means on the HR side, a lot of startups and small businesses don't have the capacity to bring on a full HR person. So I'll be like their fractional head of HR, come in, write policies, programs, initiatives, really set the pace and really set the culture for what HR needs to be. And then on the DE&I side, we do everything from audits, trainings, program management, and execution, as well as fractional head of DE&I services. So very similarly to organizations that need that DEI lens on their work, in the culture, et cetera, we also provide that as well. And the framework that we utilize on the DE&I side, it's my own framework called the 4 A's method. And so really, when we come in to do any work with any client, we always start with an audit, then we do an assessment, then we create an action plan, and then we get into the activation phase. And so through the 4 A's method, you're really able to see the different mechanics and opportunities and frameworks that really elevate culture and really begin to build inclusivity at the core of what you're doing.
And what's the website? So if folks want to come to you and check you out.
cultureshifthr.com or my personal site, AlsyhaCampbell.com. They both link to one another on LinkedIn, IG, all the things. You can find all the information.
Awesome. I'm excited. So everyone, she gave you the information now. Only thing she could do is lay it out there now. I need you to take that step and go contact her, right? So let's get into the topic today. And I'm excited, right? Because there's a lot that's going on, right, in our society, in our world right now, and leadership. is playing it has a huge role in this. Let's say it that way. And it's something
Hmm.
that, we can say that, hey, this person is a leader or they're leading this organization, but the title and actually being it, right, and actually exhibiting the characteristics and actually doing something is different, right? And so when we think about this idea of a leader, and more specifically an inclusive leader, right? We hear this word a lot, and you hear the word inclusivity a lot, inclusion a lot, and then you hear it now in front of a leader, right? And so I want to make sure that we just spend some time to really dive into what it is, how do we get to this place, how do we show these characteristics, development, etc., and go from there. But to start it off, where I want to start is just to kind of set the baseline and the foundation. Can you let our audience know, like, what does it mean to be an inclusive leader, just so we have a starting point that we can launch off of?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about the word inclusive leader, a lot of people kind of just think about the core word leadership,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you have a team, you lead your team, you hit milestones, deliverables, etc. But when you added the word inclusive to it, it really begins to change the scope and the dynamic of how that leader needs to activate and the expansion that they need to have, both from a mindset and a culture perspective to really lead inclusively. So the definition around inclusive leadership kind of comes down to four kind of key elements of its definition. So one, it's about leading a diverse team. So knowing that we live in a globalized world, a lot of our teams, especially now being remote since COVID, we have teams all over the globe. We have people in countries we may not have even visited before that, English may not even be their
Yeah.
first language. And so being able to first lead a diverse team. But then when you think about leading a diverse team, what does that even mean? So one, diversity. We have to be mindful and elevate our cultural and emotional intelligence around the elements of diversity dimensions. The way people show up, the way that intersectionality plays a role in our identities, it's important that we have a higher cultural intelligence to understand how diversity comes to life. The way that I solve a problem is going to be different than the way somebody else's. My
Yep.
experiences are going to be different than somebody else's. And it's not to paint everybody with the same stroke or with the same brush, but actually taking the time to understand how that diversity comes together. And then the second part is to really create a culture where it can thrive and actually be activated. And so there's a saying that says diversity is a fact, inclusion is an act. Because when you think about it, you have two people in a room, you have diversity.
Yep.
The people are going to be different, but inclusion and actually having people be inclusive, it takes intentionality. It takes an opportunity to say, how am I making sure that I'm valuing and honoring your experiences, your voice, your insights, etc., to this decision, to this project, to the work that we're doing. And it's really about then honoring and understanding the magic that people bring, like actually taking the time to be mindful and purposeful to then include it and make it a part of the equation. And then what kind of wraps that definition up in a really beautiful way is that we need to be mindful that as our human nature automatically kind of ingrains in us from before we're even born, is that we are not made to be inclusive.
Yeah.
We are not made to think in an inclusive lens. So we have to automatically think about, how can I have an anti-bias towards inclusiveness and diversity? So understanding that we have unconscious bias, understanding that we have blind spots, and taking the time to actually explore what those are. And what's interesting, as probably any one of us who's listening has experienced, to reflect on ourselves and to think about, okay, what are my blind
Yeah.
spots? It's an uncomfortable conversation. We don't want to admit that we may have had, incidences or conversations that could have been racist, sexist, and all those other isms. But that's human nature. We are built off of our experiences and our environment as we continue to grow and be the human beings and leaders that we are. But if you can understand the power that has and take the intentionality to understand those blind spots, that's how your inclusivity really becomes to get activated. So an inclusive leader really begins to build out on all those key
Yeah.
components and understanding how it affects you as a leader, your team, and the culture that you're looking to build.
No, this is awesome, and it's making me kind of think through your definition, and want to get your thoughts here. When you take that understanding of an inclusive leader, and then you drop it into the environment that we're in right now, when it comes to the social, the economic conditions that we're in, and everything that's just in the world right now. As a leader, right? As an inclusive leader, can you just speak to the importance, right, of if someone's like not there yet, or they're thinking about, like, how do I change my leadership style? not going into how to change it right now, but specifically like what's the importance understanding the current environment that we're in right now, right? For leaders to think in
Mhm.
this way and act. Let's say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's first to recognize that the world has
Yep.
changed. If you are still believing that, okay, I can continue to lead the way that I've been
Mm-hmm.
leading and still expecting to be competitive, still expecting to be strategic and everything that, companies expect of leaders, this is going to be a little bit of a rude awakening. I think it's important that you begin to expand your knowledge, your information, your experiences to understand more about the world around
Yep.
you. And I say that in the sense of getting outside of your comfort zone of the experiences you are familiar with and get and understand experiences that may never have come into your atmosphere of influence or understanding before and dig deeper. I think that is the first part of learning to open that awareness and really becoming very cognizant of what's going on around you. I think number two, wanting to take any action or even begin on an inclusive leadership journey, it comes back to yourself. Before you can even begin to influence your team, your company, policies, your community, even, you need to know where you stand. And so, taking an anti bias test or any test that helps you understand your biases or your blind spots, listening to a podcast, a book, watching a movie, a documentary, whatever that is for you that allows you to learn,
Yeah.
take the time to learn and reflect and then realize and question the assumptions that you've had and write those down and really be mindful of how this is the filter that you create your decisions through. These are the filters that you communicate with. And now that you understand the impact of what that means, how are you now going to begin to change and shift and really not lean into those previous kind of notions that you've had as a leader? And so before anything can even activate in a broader scope, it really starts with us. It starts with the leaders themselves and really taking the time to say, I no longer want to be ignorant. I no longer do not want to know. I know I can't know everything, but let me start. And it starts with even you. Like, do your own little reflective of who am
Yep.
I? Write down your own diversity dimensions, right? What is your makeup? And then understanding that you are made of so many different pieces and so many beautiful elements that create you. Do you even understand you? And then you take that lens and say, okay, now how am I supposed to understand my team and create inclusiveness and connectiveness as a culture? You then need to understand them. So if we can't do the work ourselves, we can't even begin to understand the work of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important that it really, really does truly begin with us before we can do any external work at all.
Awesome. And so in this space right now, and I'm curious, what let me see the way to put this. For organizations, and I kind of want to make sure like we know what an inclusive leader is. We kind of understand it, and we got some context around some of those things that we need to do. I think broader, right? Just a little bit broader here. Like, what are those? Like, what are the repercussions, right? For not going down this path. I would say, right? When we think about we need to change, or we're thinking about the environment, the world is becoming more diverse. There's more that's just happening along the way. We need to really change. Like the flip side of that, for organizations to where it hasn't clicked, or for leaders to where it just hasn't clicked, right? What are like those consequences, some of those things that you've seen happen as a result of leaders not really taking this new approach to how they lead, whether it be organization in their community, etc.
So many,
Yeah.
unfortunately, detrimental things to not even the company, but to the
The
team
team.
itself.
Yep.
One, you see a lack of
Mm,
engagement off the bat because there's only so much someone's going to do or say or
yep.
activate before they're like, you know what, I'm not really going to be here. I'm going to kind of check out. So your team isn't going to be engaged. Number two, your team is not going to have the psychological safety to feel like they can take risks
Mm,
in order to give you their best and brightest ideas. So they are going to be sleeping on making sure this team activates and gets its goals done and accomplished at higher levels. Three, your team is going to feel isolated and alone. And so members of your team are going to feel like they can't connect, that they're there just to, be a task rabbit and go home at the end of the day. They're not going to feel included. They're not going to feel like anything or anyone cares. And that's going to be demonstrated in the energy and the insights that they bring to the team. And I think 4 is that your team isn't going to hit the great results you want them to because they ultimately just aren't activated and feel included enough to do that. And I think, when we think about old leadership tactics, it's like, okay, you push your team, you drive your
Yep.
team, until you need to get to the goal or whatever. And it's like, as we've clearly seen from COVID, from working from home, from quiet quitting to everything else in between, we're done.
Yeah.
We really could not give 2 Fs if we did not want to. In all honesty, like,
Yeah.
we are done.
Yeah.
I owe you nothing. And that's the mindset of employees. Like, I don't owe you anything. You already have my time. That is it. You're not getting up anymore. And I think leaders need to understand that's what I mean. The tide has changed. It's not that again, I'm painting right now with a little bit of broad
Yeah.
strokes, but employees realize the value they bring. They understand that there is a life outside of work. They
Yep.
understand and have reprioritized what's important. So if you're no longer adding that value to their life where they are feeling seen, appreciated, heard, included, then you're not going to get that full person to show up every single day. They're going to put that energy into other areas of their life. And I say that personally because that's what I
Yeah.
did. And that's kind of where I got to when I hit that wall and started college, because I'm like, I have no other outlet. I
Yeah.
have no other opportunity to feel seen. So I'm going to create that for myself. And so leaders need to recognize that there are going to be repercussions and there's are going to be side effects if we don't really begin to take intentionality of inclusive culture seriously.
I hope y'all listening. Look, I hope everybody is listening. Look, y'all gonna see me look down. Why? Because I'm taking notes. I'm telling you, look, y'all, everybody take notes, right? Because this information, we got to sit with it, right? We need to understand, and listen to the information that you're providing, right? Before we react, right? We just, kind of just sit in this, right, and really understand, really take that introspective look here and say, hey, and how am I showing up? How am I showing up in the spaces that I'm in so that we can become aware of what's happening around us, right? Because like I said, back to like the quiet quitting and the things that's going on, like you can think things are going great because results are coming on the other end, but the way by which you're getting those results are going to be a detriment to the organization, to the individuals, etc. Right, longer for a longer
Absolutely.
period here, and so I want to transition a little bit here. Because you have a lot of people who, let's say that they are inclusive leaders, right, and they get into organizations, or they leave their organization and go to a new one, and the organization just might not be as inclusive, right, or it might not be there yet, and I know this happens a lot. How should someone approach kind of a new role or new company, right, when the culture isn't there yet, or the culture isn't how they have experienced in the past, right, when it comes to inclusion? Like, what's the kind of those first couple of things that people need to do to kind of really be culture changers and really shift the culture in these organizations as they come inside of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you're coming into a new organization and you understand the power of inclusion, you want to make sure you're creating an inclusive culture for your
Yep.
team and ultimately help to provide an inclusive culture for the company. I think it's recognizing where people are at.
Mm.
And I think when people hear that, it's like, oh, you're making an excuse, or oh, you're giving them a blind. It's like, absolutely not. But I think we have to recognize that people are on different spectrums of their inclusive leadership journey. So I can't be, as an example, on a level 5 and you're on level 1 and being like, pick it up.
Yep.
Like there's so much in between that needs to happen before even getting to that
Hmm.
spot. So that element of empathy needs to be
Yep.
there. Now, I say that saying that if someone chooses to not be inclusive deliberately, or they are not wanting to at least understand and try to put in the building blocks of making sure that the organization becomes more inclusive, that's something they need to come to a decision on their own. You can influence, you can help, you can support, but we can't force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. So I would say don't spend your time on people who really don't want to put in the work. Focus on the people who do and help
Woo!
support them and help them to
There you
grow.
go. Somebody need to hear
Yes.
that. I'm sorry.
Yes. And then, no, I love it. And then from there, it's being the example.
Yep.
Show how your team is better performing, show how they're more engaged, show the power of what inclusivity can do. And other leaders are going to start to see that and pick that up too. And by being an example, it's about leaning in, providing support, resources, talking to people, bringing communities together and showing the power of what community can bring. And the rest kind of just falls into place. If you're going to be that advocate and kind of that shepherd for that, I think it's one, know that that comes with responsibility if you're ready to take that on. But two, also know that there's only so much within your control and to do what you can, but continue to not lose yourself in the work. Focus on also making sure you're taken care of and that your team has the best version of you
Yeah.
possible.
No, I love it. I love it. And so at scale here, we got a couple more questions. If I am in HR, right, or I am a leader within my organization, right, and I'm trying to determine like if my leaders are inclusive, right, if they are there yet, what are some of those signs that I should be on the lookout for before I call you, right? That I can see like these are some of the behaviors that I'm seeing broader in the organization. These are some of the behaviors that I'm seeing within those individuals. So that, if someone's trying to figure out, they might be sitting here listening to the podcast and they're like, man, I have like 5 leaders that are
Yeah.
demonstrating those. And it's like, let me call Alicia real quick and figure this out. But what are those like? What are
Yes.
some of those keys that people can just observe and see so that they can decide and say, okay, yeah, it's time for us to really make a big shift here when it comes to what's happening at that level?
Mhm. Absolutely. I think too, usually organizations have some type of annual engagement or culture
Yep,
survey.
I
Look at the
like it.
data. What are your employees saying? What are they not saying? And that will give you a really good baseline on what people are thinking, what are the areas or even employee demographics that are feeling less involved
Yep.
than others, what are the programs or elements of your workplace that are maybe getting in the way and hindering and not helping. And three, how are your employees connecting back to their managers or their leaders? You're going to be able to derive all that from a really good and robust culture survey. Number two, you want to look at your attrition rates. So, what is the turnover that we're having now? Attrition is not tied directly necessarily to inclusivity. People leave jobs for many different reasons. However, if you're doing exit interviews, you should be able to see if there is any key
Yep.
themes of how people are able to show up and really be included or feel included in the work that they are doing. Are they constantly getting pushback? Are they getting questioned twice as much as their other colleagues? Are they getting opportunity to be visible and be seen and actually elevate their own knowledge and opportunity? Are they getting access to higher development or opportunities to excel or get promoted? Is there opportunities for them to get mentorship or opportunities to be seen and utilized differently in the business? All those things you'll be able to derive if asking the right questions from an exit interview.
Okay.
And then I think three, it's really just if you're a leader and you kind of want to get a sense of actually what's going on at levels, I would say have conversations. It can be a little bit intimidating. For example, if the CEO wants to sit down with like a new employee, but take the time to if you're given that opportunity, one, use it, give your feedback, give your insight, and leaders really listen. And what I mean by that is take your ego out of the way. This has nothing
Yeah.
to do with how you're feeling in this moment. It's all about your employee. So do some skip level meetings, run a focus group, have real conversations with employees that are on that level, doing the work, engaging with the managers and leaders to get that real insight feedback and understand what's actually going on, and that you're not just hearing it, secondhand from the leaders themselves. So I think activating any of those three things will help you get the data you need to help create the narrative, to then help create an action plan and next steps of how you're going to tackle and really start to create more of an inclusive culture.
I got those down. Make sure we go back to my team and say, look, everybody sit down. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Oh, this is I'm sorry. That was just crazy. Look, as
Oh.
we're getting, close to the end, I know that, just doing the work that you're doing, right, you have to be an avid learner, right? And I am a big proponent of, look, there's some things that happen inside of our organizations, right? A lot of the education, right, happens outside, right? It's that us being able to go and just,
Mm-hmm.
really care about this work, dig deeper, really do the self-assessments, really do the deep looks at ourselves to figure out how we need to change and adjust. And so for those individuals that are looking to do that, are there some resources and some places that they can go, right? Or some really good books or some things that could really start to help them really put all of this information into perspective so they can use it and begin to build upon this, right, as they grow in their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's on both the Culture Shift site as well as my personal site, there's guides, there's tip sheets. We have online programs as well if you want to explore that avenue of
Mm,
training. Definitely check
Yep.
those out. If you just even Google, DEI or inclusive leadership resources, books, movies, whatever your medium of preference is, you will find an incredible list of resources. There is a list as well that I have, Cedric, that I can share
Awesome.
with you. So, and you can add it to the
Yep.
podcast so that people can click on that and download it, but really learn in a way that's meaningful for you. So if you don't like to read, you don't have to go read 10,000 books. Find a podcast, a show, a
Yep.
movie, whatever other element that is, a paper, a case study to get that information. The world we live in, there is no excuse that you cannot consume content in the way that you
Yep.
like to still get the information and insight you need. So do not make that a barrier, make that an opportunity. And as long as you have the curiosity and the drive to learn, you will
Yeah.
learn and use trusted resources, trusted insights, even having coffee chats with other DEI practitioners like myself. The world is full of them in different areas. I focus more on racial equity. There's elements, whether it's education, health, culture. There's so many different facets to this work. I could not do it justice alone. And there's incredible practitioners and workers out there that focus on so many different areas of this. So, have a coffee chat, set up a Zoom
Yep.
meeting, and just talk, just learn. And you'll be fascinated what you can walk away with in 30
No,
minutes.
that's awesome. Do you have a favorite out of all of that? Because the conversations for me are the
Oh,
favorite, right? I love to just sit down and talk,
yeah.
and like even after I read something or I go through some information, right, to be able to talk it out with somebody and be able to kind of get all my thoughts and perspectives out. But I'm curious, like if there's something
hmm
that you have as like a go to, right, for you through in that kind of education element here.
Yeah, I'm the same age as you. I love talking to people. I have a really great network of other DEI
Yep.
practitioners in all different
Uh huh.
scopes. And so we either get together, we meet up at events, we do one-to-ones, catch-ups, and I'll just ask them a question. We can just go on for hours. And then they themselves are also always publishing articles and blogs. And I take the time to read them and to follow up and really just learn through people. That's the way that I like to navigate this space
No,
as
that's
well.
awesome. That's awesome. So look, this has been an amazing conversation. Before we go, do you have any shout outs or any parting words? And one more time, if you could just let folks know where they can find you, because I know they'll be reaching out. But any parting words before we go?
Yeah.
Any last kind of things you want to leave the audience with?
Just start.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just start. Start with yourself. Ask yourself some
Yeah.
questions. Read an article or two if you're comfortable or want to know how to even ask the right questions to yourself. But just start in some shape or form. Just start. And for those of you again who want to reach out to me, cultureshifthr.com, alyshacampbell.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all the things, or email Alicia at cultureshifthr.com. Reach out, ask a question, set up a coffee chat. Would love to hear and connect with all of
No,
you.
that's awesome. And we're going to link all of the
Yeah.
websites and the information in the notes in the
Yeah.
description. So everyone, please, you can find any information that we discuss, any sites or anything in that space there. But this has been an amazing conversation. Thanks everybody for joining us on another episode of 3D Podcast. This has been Cedric, and you've been listening to Alsyha Campbell, founder of Culture Shift HR. Thanks. Thanks, Alsyha.